All right, so we've shared your bios. Everyone, I think most of the crowd, if not everyone, is a major fan of both of you. There was one fan of mine here, one, but everybody else was like, Mark and Ahmed are here. So I'm not gonna do that part again. But what I would like to ask you guys, because we're gonna shorten this a little bit to make sure we get questions from the audience, why CAIR-Philadelphia? When you got the invitation to join this evening's event, what about CAIR-Philadelphia brought you back home? You know, and what about the work that CAIR is doing is important and you want to lift up? Why CAIR-Philadelphia? And we'll start with Ahmed.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Turn your chairs so you're facing the stage. Let's have an exercise. Turn your chairs so you're facing the stage because everyone's going to be looking at the stage for a little while now. Good. So, I'm also from here. I know Mark is the famous Philadelphia person that speaks up for Palestine, but I grew up here. When we came here to America from Jordan in 1980, when I was 3 years old, we ended up outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And so this is home to me as well. I live now in Dearborn, Michigan, but I have my roots here. And so this is my community as far as I'm concerned. We Palestinians, we sometimes have many communities. So this is my community. I grew up here. I know a lot of the people here. So it was important and I was honored to be invited to be here. But also CAIR is like, and I tell this to people whenever I talk about why we support CAIR, it's like an insurance policy, right? I mean, you have car insurance in case your car gets in an accident. Well, CAIR is what you pay every month in case our rights get into an accident. And it happens a lot. And so the premiums are high. And so we need you all to pay. But the truth is, there is no other group in America that is doing the work on the scale and, more importantly, with the principles that CAIR does. CAIR didn't just start standing up for Palestine on October 7th. CAIR has been standing up for Palestine and Palestinian rights since the day it was founded. CAIR has been standing up for people. CAIR has been standing up for people who have been attacked for speaking out for Palestine. Here's one of them over here. And CAIR has been standing up for people's rights, whether it's the right to boycott or whatever it is. So it's important that while CAIR has all the challenges that it might have, it's our job to make sure that money is not one of the problems that they have. And I saw the cars in the parking lot, so we are able to do that here tonight.
Mark, how about you? Yeah. Why CAIR-Philadelphia tonight?
Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum, family. Forgive me, I'm under the weather a little bit. Growing up in Philadelphia, everything I'm gonna just say is that's he's covered the good stuff, so my job's easy now. On a personal note, growing up in Philadelphia, watching Muslims mistreated, and it was sort of matter of fact. Like, for example, I went to Carver, Engineering and Science. That's right. And we weren't allowed to pray in school. And it wasn't until 12th grade that we had to fight to be able to take 2 buses and a train to get to the closest masjid. Wow. Because they wouldn't there was some weird technicality where we had to go to certain ones in certain neighborhoods. They were just trying to make it difficult. And there was no commitment to making it different. We had Christmas break. They didn't even call it holiday break then, it was Christmas break. One of the biggest Muslim cities in America, and there were no days off for Eid. These were things that we just took as normal. We just normalized the idea that Muslims just were gonna get treated differently. And whatever we did, we just had to do on the side. That there'd be no institutional support. The idea that somebody could be around to help us didn't make a lot of sense in a lot of ways, particularly as Black Muslims. And then over time, the next generation of kids had the same idea, except as CAIR gets bigger and stronger, it was like, oh wait, It doesn't have to be like that. Oh, wait, you're not just going to get harassed. Oh, wait, you're not just going to get fired from your job. Oh, wait, you're not just going to get profiled at the airport.
Right.
Like, it got different. And to know that there's institutions around to help and to support not just Muslims, but also, as Amr said, like the cause of Palestine, which it connects to Muslims, but it's also a cause of justice. CAIR is committed to justice. And so for me, why CAIR Philadelphia? Because I'm from here and I have a personal connection. But me and Amr be like, I mean, I half the time I see you, it's at a CAIR event. You know, or my brother Moses the comic, like, we're gonna be at a CAIR here, CAIR there, CAIR wherever, because in every city there's a need for it. And so I'm just glad to be here and hope again that we can invest in this thing that protects all of us.
So let's dig in a little bit here. I don't think we need to set the stage necessarily for. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, be
all right.
louder, yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm one of 6 girls, but for some reason you give me a microphone now I can't project. So I want to kind of talk about the context we're in right now. We know CAIR is important. CAIR's been important. Why is the legal work that CAIR does, the advocacy work that CAIR does, why is that more important now in the context that we're in right now? Either of you. And if you want to think about some examples with, like, say, for college students, I know you both have worked a lot with activists, college students, but how is CAIR uniquely important to our community in this moment that we're in?
Well, I think I'll speak for Mark too and say we work with college students, but we're not old.
Yes.
I'll just keep it very quick. The number one thing that the pro-Israel people and the Zionist establishment tries to do is shut us up. And there's only one reason you try to silence the other side, that's because you're lying. And we have the truth, and they are very afraid of that. And so it's important that we keep talking and that we keep talking about Palestine all the time because it's working. I mean, there's 800 of us in here, and I think there was like 20 of them outside. Yeah. So the ratio is pretty good. And CAIR is one of those organizations that make sure that they protect that. There's nothing more important than that. I mean, I'm a lawyer and I teach law, but I can tell you, you know, we have the people who talk about free speech the most in America. I'm not going to drop any names or anything. Trump, Musk. But anyway, the people who talk the most about free speech in America are the ones who are trying to shut us up the most. So it's important that we support the organization like this that is letting us keep our voices heard, to remember also that we have the truth. The other side tries to shut us up because they're the ones lying.
Again, I agree with everything. I like when he go first.
This is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go first next time.
No, this is great. This is a very dangerous moment, but I just want to be very clear that the moment didn't just get dangerous, because I don't want to reinforce the narrative that somehow the establishment was cool when Trump ain't here.
Right.
You know, Democrats are Zionists at the core in terms of the political establishment, mainstream political establishment in the United States. A 15-month genocide happened under the watch of Democrats. U.S. foreign policy toward Israel and Palestine has been bipartisanly jacked up. Right. So I don't want to make like this kind of pro wrestling good guy, bad guy thing that somehow happens. That's not to say that they're all the same. I also don't want I don't want y'all to think that either. There is a difference, and it's getting worse. But I just want to be very clear about that. The other thing I would say really quickly is I think it's important for us to recognize what's at stake. We're starting to have to relitigate the fights of the 50s and the 60s again.
Right.
That's what's bizarre about this moment. They're criminalizing dissent. They're making it so that the very mention of race or the very mention of difference is seen as the problem, rather than acts of oppression and violence against those people who are marked as different. So we got a lot going on right now, and we have to fight. We got to keep our voices open, because the people who the forces we would normally look to for help are not only not helping us, but they're hurting us.
I would clap for that one. I mean, honestly. Both of you are preaching. Both of you are preaching up here. So Ahmed made a quick joke about it earlier, but I want to kind of go back to this idea of being canceled, right? And what happens on campuses where college students are pushed into not speaking up because they end up on the Canary Mission website where now they can't get a job and all these things. Mark, you experienced being canceled, right? But not fully because you're here, right?
Just my TV shows.
Right. But can you talk a little bit about why it's so important for you personally to continue advocating for justice, for Palestinians, for everyone, despite the costs? And if you're able to kind of share what it is like navigating that, right? I mean, we're in a new venue because CAIR had to navigate that space just this year, so.
Yeah. When you're fighting against the status quo, when you're fighting against power, it comes at a cost. And I think we have to enter the fight knowing that. We can't enter the fight everybody want to go to heaven, don't nobody want to die. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes people are like, I want the big fancy corporate job, I want to be on mainstream TV, but I also want to fight Zionism. Well, I got news for you. Something's got to give. So you got to enter the fight with that. Doesn't mean you concede to the injustice, but you have to walk into the fight knowing what's at stake. The power remain powerful for a reason, right? The racist, the capitalist, whatever thing you're fighting, the patriarchy, whatever you're fighting, they stay powerful for a reason. So I begin from that place, and then we still fight. Every night that I was on CNN, I assumed that there was a great possibility that I would get fired.
Wow.
There's no way to go on TV and tell the truth and not at some point get fired. I didn't think it was going to be that day. I definitely...
I did.
Right?
When I heard what you said, I did.
Who knew? I might have said window to the wall, free Palestine from the window to the wall or something instead. You know, like, I didn't know. That was a much better joke than y'all give me credit for. But I would say that I entered the fight with that understanding, but I also am grateful for the solidarity that emerged afterward. You know, when I left the UN that day, I didn't know. The next morning at CNN, I found out. And I didn't know exactly what to make of it. But I just want to add real quickly, like, getting fired from CNN, it sucked. There's embarrassment, there's shame, there's money, there's all this stuff, right? And it's not gonna get another job like that, right? But it's a small price to pay compared to what Palestinians have to go through every single day. This is not, losing a TV job is nothing. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people potentially murdered in Gaza. You're talking about settler raids. You're talking about land theft. You're talking about dispossession. You're talking about all the things that are happening, not just in Gaza, but in the West Bank right now as we speak. What's happening in East Jerusalem, what's happening to Palestinians who have citizenship inside of 48. All of it is a thing that we have to wrestle with and deal with. So to me, that's way more important. I think the key for us is to build our own institutions and to have our own forms of protection so that people can't just take your job and keep you quiet. Because then you get bought and you get co-opted. And the fear becomes bigger than the other thing.
Right.
I work in a university where faculty tell me, well, I would speak out against Palestine, but I need tenure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you something. 99% of the people I meet who say they'll tell the truth once their job is secure. Once the job is secure, they find another reason to not tell the truth.
There's always another reason.
There's always a reason to be a coward. So speak out, be courageous, but we as a community have to close ranks around those people. Not me, but people who really are losing big stakes and paying the biggest cost. We have to close ranks around them, we have to invest in them, and we have to invest in institutions like CAIR that provide protection and safety and representation for people who are going through this.
And at this moment, I will direct your attention to your tables where there's information on how you can continue to give to CAIR and do that, right? Create that space. I like how you said close ranks. Use that terminology for this, right? Solidarity for our community members. And that brings me actually to another question, which I think is very related. We talked briefly at our table about how your daughter was part of the encampments on campus.
At a school that will not get doxxed. So,
no, of course not. Of course not.
Trump University. She's at Trump University.
I don't think you even told me. But there are a lot of students that were doing that, right? That were getting active in a new way, being creative. I was active when I was a student. We started Students for Justice in Palestine. A bunch of us ended up on these websites and things like that. I'm curious whether the two of you, more seasoned,
not old,
seasoned active members of the community are noticing a difference in this generation's activism around Palestine and human rights advocacy, more broadly, or not?
Well, there's not a difference in what they're doing. There's a difference in obviously technology and social media and all that kind. We didn't have that when we were marching in the late '90s in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We didn't have the technology, but we were still marching on the president's office and doing sit-ins and all that kind of stuff, and documenting it with photo cameras.
With film?
Yeah, film.
Rolls of film?
But now, of course, technology is different, so people get a little bit more scared because it's more instant, So, yeah, you talked about Canary Mission. Do you guys know what Canary Mission is? So Canary Mission is this website run by Zionists where they sort of like document the long history of people who criticize Israel. And so I have one of like the longest entries on Canary Mission.
Nice.
And so, well, when people invite me to speak somewhere and they ask me for my bio, I send them my Canary Mission link because it's the most thorough background that anyone has ever done. I mean, they're bringing up tweets that I forgot I said, and I'm like, that was a good one.
Bars.
And but the message then I try to give to everybody, whether they're younger or older, because people always come up and they say, I'm afraid, I'm not going to get this job, I'm not going to get that job. I say, look, if you encounter someone who doesn't want to give you a job because you speak up for Palestine, it doesn't really matter whether you did it in a nice way or a not so nice way. If they hate you, they hate you. But also, and I know, look, this might not work for everybody, but let's just look real clearly at history. There's nothing wrong. Canary Mission is an arm of the state at the end of the day, okay? And there is nothing wrong with being an enemy of the state. Most of the enemies of the state in the history of the world were people who spoke the truth. Martin Luther King was an enemy of the state. Malcolm X was an enemy of the state. The prophets Muhammad and Jesus were enemies of the state. So there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, there might be something very right about that. Those are the people that get remembered in history. So I would just encourage people to sort of follow the people that we hold up. They never cared what the people in power thought about them. They never cared about what they might lose for speaking the truth, and many of them literally lost their lives for it. So I think we need to take that example, not be afraid. Listen, there's only one reason why they're trying to shut us up. If we were lying, do you notice that we never try to shut them up? Like we like it when they talk? Because they tell on, racists always tell on themselves eventually. So if the guys that were protesting, if they want to come to every event I ever do, that's okay with me. I mean, some of the stuff they were saying, it's like unbelievable. So let them talk, and they're trying to shut us up because we're telling the truth. So just keep going because it's working, and we're winning, and the freedom of Palestine is way closer now than it was a couple years ago.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I was curious for your perspective on that, partly because it hasn't been that long since I was a college student on campus doing these things. But even in my perspective, it seems like a lot of progress has been made, right? So I don't want to get into that egocentric, things are better because it seems better to me, right? But it does seem like we're gaining support beyond just the Muslim kids, beyond just the Arab kids, beyond just the kids who grew up with them.
Well, that's
right?
definitely true, but it's not something that happened as a result of the past 2 years, it's something that happened as a result of the past
Correct.
40 years
Correct.
or 50 years.
Correct.
Everything leading up to this, because these college students are the children of people who were college activists 25 or 30 years ago who prepared them for this moment. So, that's the important thing to remember.
I want to take that. I want to piggyback on that and just say that fair.
Move the mic closer.
I just
Oh,
got
sorry.
that.
I'm
Somebody
about to
said
say,
Camelback.
pigs are actually not
Now
how
we're
pork
getting-
is, but you can piggyback.
Well, you can't
but-
say piggyback at a Muslim event?
Apparently not. I didn't know.
This sister said you can.
Look.
Regardless, you wanted to continue.
Yes, I
on the
was
point.
going. That's good though. Yesterday was the 60th anniversary, sadly, of the assassination of Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, Malcolm X. He was murdered in the Audubon Ballroom 60 years ago yesterday, and this May will be his 100th birthday. And I was thinking about, when Amr was talking about this 40-year struggle, I think that it's really important to also mark the power of solidarity over those 40 years and 50 years and 60 years, and Black Muslims in particular have been vocal in articulating that connection. When Malcolm X, when Malcolm X writes, right, Malcolm X dies in 65. In September of 64, he writes On Zionist Logic, an essay in the Egyptian Gazette called On Zionist Logic. And that was a key moment and a pivotal moment where not just black Muslims, although black Muslims have been doing this for a long time. Malcolm went to Gaza, he went to Jerusalem 5 years prior. When this moment is happening, they're saying, wait a minute, this is neo-colonialism. Wait, this is settler colonialism. Wait a minute. This isn't just about being Muslim. This is about a commitment to fighting injustice. And so those moments of solidarity are part of the 40 years of buildup so that you can kind of, I can use a football metaphor since we won the Super Bowl. You know, running backs don't run through lines, they run through holes. And it's 40 years of struggle at the line that creates a space for a moment like this. And so it's very exciting to see this moment. And there's a lot more to happen. The powerful are going to fall. Victory will happen, but we have to keep struggling, keep working, and keep doing it in solidarity with one another, which means we got to show up for Palestine, but also my Palestinian brothers and sisters stand up and we show up for struggles for justice here in the United States, and for black folk, for brown folk. As Trump,
Right.
we got to do that too. That's all
Right.
part of the conversation.
Yeah. So I want to leave time for the audience to ask questions, so I'm going to ask my last question to you two. Right along lines with that football analogy, which I loved, what advice would you give to folks that are here this evening, besides donating to CAIR-Philadelphia, what are some other ways that we can work to create those gaps for the Saquons of the world to get through, right? What is some actionable steps that we can offer for folks to help bring that progress, inshallah?
I'm gonna give two real quick ones. First, study. As Amr said, we have the right information. We have the right information because we read, we consume knowledge. Deep study is important, y'all. Read the information. Not just what's on the website, not just what's on a meme, not just what's on TikTok, but let's read books, let's engage, let's build, and also organize. That means everybody doesn't have to start an organization, but we can all join an organization. Let's work together instead of working in silos.
Yeah, for me, it's just being consistent and the continuity. Keep going.
Yeah.
I've been to Palestine 3 times since October 7th, and I'm going next week. And every time I talk to people in Palestine that, you know, they know me and know I'm from America, what they do is they continuously ask me to thank everybody in America that is speaking up because they see it. So you should know that while you're getting your strength from the resilience of the people in Gaza, they're getting, and Palestine in general now, because all of Palestine's under attack, that they are getting their strength from watching you stand up for them here. So we have to keep going and keep doing that back and forth. And I was asked to ask you to say that there's volunteers walking around. If anyone wants to give a donation, please make sure that you flag one of them down.
And at this moment, if you have a question, yeah, I see a younger person here. If you want to come up, there's a microphone right here. We have time for a few questions. So if you want to line up, there's one on that side as well. Okay.
Can everyone hear me?
I don't think is the microphone on? Oh, there it is. Go ahead. Get
on?
close.
Okay. Well, before I ask this question, I wanted to give some context really quick. I was watching your interview, your debate on Piers Morgan with Candace Owens, and it made me realize that we can't criticize different politicians.
Get closer to the mic.
We can't criticize different politicians based off identity and race, and that's an important struggle that we should talk about and that in the debate. Before we criticize the politicians, we have to make sure that the mic keeps turning off. We have to make sure that we prioritize struggles before that. So my question was Candace Owens, she speaks out a lot about Palestine, but she's also really damaging about her critiques against black people and homophobia and different types of things like those. So do you believe that there's a wrong voice to speak out for Palestine and different struggles us across the world?
That's an interesting question. Okay.
I don't feel comfortable deciding who should speak out for Palestine because I'm not Palestinian. I will say that, you know, a broken clock is right twice a day. You know, Candace Owens says things that are problematic, and she should be challenged for it. She says things that are deeply hurtful and harmful. She says things that are transphobic, homophobic, misogynistic, and anti-Semitic. She's part of that. I mean, most critiques of a critique of Israel is not an act of anti-Semitism. But what Candace Owens does, that's something else. She got her own little category. So when she happens to point out, hey, there are innocent people in Gaza, I don't know if I would put the spotlight on Candace Owens so much, because it seems to me that that should be axiom. It should be self-evident that babies shouldn't be slaughtered. But there is a way that that can be leveraged to say, look, even Candace Owens, you know, like even Candace Owens conceded this ain't right. That has to be worth something. And just so you know, Candace Owens was the darling of the right wing. They loved her because she was the black person willing to tell black people that black people ain't worth nothing. And somehow, she no longer fit their plan. She got the same call I got. Just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Walaikum assalam.
Okay. What would you say the conclusion?
Move closer to the mic.
Okay.
Yeah.
The salute during the inauguration, and the other people were saying it wasn't the salute. But if I gave the salute, it would be anti-Semitic. Why wasn't it anti-Semitic when the car guy, which I don't say his name ever, gave the salute? What do you think about that?
I think being white is amazing. I mean, it's, you know, that's America, right? I mean, Elon Musk, imagine if anyone else who was imagine a black immigrant who had 12 children from 5 women or something like that, decided that they wanted to become became the closest advisor to the President of the United States. Like, it would never happen. Imagine if when you first heard about Barack Obama in 2006 or whenever, you know, I voted for Barack Obama twice because he's a Muslim. So anyway, Barack Hussein, bro, that's enough for me. But imagine if you first heard about Barack Obama in 2004 or 6 or whenever you did, that you heard that this black man who wants to become president had 5 children from 3 women and cheated on the first one with the second one and cheated on the third one with a porn star and paid her $130,000 to be quiet. Like, you would have never heard of Barack Obama, right? He would have never gotten out of the south side of Chicago. So, you know, it's so beautiful to be white, and that's what the car guy, what'd you call him? The car guy
Yeah.
has proven. And Trump, for that matter.
Okay. Camelback, the car guy.
Yeah.
Question?
Yes. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Walaikum assalam.
I just want to say this. That's why, like Brother Mark said earlier, and all the speakers up there said, that's why it's so important that CAIR exists, because I'm going to give a good example why CAIR exists, because like Mark said, it challenges people. And I'll give a good example of what I'm talking about. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that members of the Black Caucus, he had dinner with them at his house in Chicago. And he said, they said, Brother Farrakhan, we agree with you about Israel. We agree with you they're a racist Zionist state, but we're afraid to be publicly seen with you. We're afraid to speak out publicly because they'll call us anti-Semitic. They'll cut our funding off. And my point is this, is that it's about time that black leadership stop being so damn cowardly and stand up with Palestinian people and stop letting these racist white Zionist Jews kowtow them and publicly, like people like Hakeem Jeffries, Gregory Meeks, supporting a racist Zionist organization. Stand up for what's right. Don't keep talking about you love Dr. King when you get up there and put genocide over in Gaza. Thank you.
I love a good name drop. Call him out. Call him out. Please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
My name is Aliyah Kabir. So first I wanted to say this is nothing new to African Americans. We have been fighting the good fight for quite some time. We've been fighting other people's good fight for quite some time. We live in a state of resistance. We live in a state of resilience. So this is not anything new. But my question to all of you would be, how do we move on from being reactive? Because that is something that our community tends to do. We get a little bit just kind of focused on what we need to do internally instead of really pushing out this type of energy constantly. And also, how do we demand that our brothers and sisters from other ethnicities stand up for our rights how we stand up for theirs? Because we're on the front line for everybody. Black people are on the front line for everybody, for everything. So we need, when things come up, for black people, for the people that we fight for, to stand with us. I need to see my Palestinian brothers and sisters in the front line of the Black Lives Matter march. I need to see them do that. So I'll leave you with those two questions. How do we move on from being reactive to proactive, and how do we encourage them, not just encourage them, but demand for them to say, hey, this got to be a two-way street?
I'm gonna answer the second one. I'm gonna answer the second one because that's one I think I have a better answer for. I think first, I agree that we should stand up and show up for each other. I think that's a must. I think that's my ethical norm. But I also never want solidarity to feel transactional. I never want it to feel like I'm doing it for you because you did it for me. Or because there's a way that capitalist logic kind of seeps into our brains where it's like, what's in it for me? I stand up because it's the right thing. As Muslims, we don't stand up for Jerusalem because it's the third holiest mosque or because it's the first Qibla or it's the site of the Isra and Miraj. We stand up for it because it's a site of injustice when settlers are raiding it and when soldiers are breaking through the doors and when land is being stolen and when settlers are kicking people out. And if it were Christians there instead of Muslims, we should still have the same energy and the same commitment. Right. So I never want it to feel like I'm showing up because it's for me. But you ain't wrong, right? There is a way that we have to be there for each other, and we have to, Gwendolyn Brooks said, we are each other's harvest, we are each other's business, we are each other's magnitude and bond. But the way to get people to understand that, for me, is through political education. People need to understand the connection between here and there. That's what the Deadly Exchange was about. It's showing people, hey, wait a minute, there's something about policing and the models of policing and police training that is mutual and reciprocal that is making it harder on all of us in Israel and in the United States. There's something about understanding how capitalism works to understand that capitalism and white supremacy, they do not stop at the border. They don't have passports. They don't have Hawiyya. They don't have any of that stuff, right? They cut across. And so to fix something in one place, we have to fix the entire system. These are transnational, global, international systems. If people understood that more, right? Like if you're sitting in first class and the plane is about to crash, and you like, I'm in first class. They ain't coach. Sucks to be them. Like at some point, you have to understand that when this plane crashes, it doesn't matter that you're in first class. But we live in a world that makes people think that if they can accumulate enough stuff, or if they can accumulate a property like being white, that's another property people think they have, right? That they'll be okay. Political education says, no, we're not. So that then people will be compelled to do better and to do more and to show up more. And if they don't show up then, I can't worry about that because for me, again, it is about speaking the truth and showing up because it's the right thing to do.
Well said. Do you want to take that?
No, I'm actually going to talk about this during my comedy show when I come up later.
Okay,
So.
all right. I think these are our last two questions. Go ahead.
I think it's very important to speak
Get closer,
up.
get closer, all the way.
I think it's very important to speak up, and I agree with that. But we don't have enough Muslims in the system who kind of are able to understand the power dynamics and the politics. Politics not just in the political sense, but in terms of like the media and all of that. So don't you think we need people to be more strategic, Muslims to be more strategic, so that they are part of the system to make the change from within?
Well, actually, I mean, yes, obviously that's true, right? But I'm an eternal optimist. And so I also know that we did participate in the system. I come from Michigan, and I know that we did participate in the system, and Gaza was the reason that Joe Biden dropped out and the reason that Kamala Harris lost. And because we decided to take advantage of the historic opportunity we had in front of us as an Arab American community we're happy to take the blame in Michigan as Arab Americans and Muslim Americans to be the reason the media has descended upon us in the last couple of weeks. You know, are you happy with what you did? Are you happy? And the answer is yes. And I'll talk about that when I get on stage later too. But so yes, of course we can always do more. We should have more people involved in the political. Of course, that's true. That should be true for any community. But let's also look on the bright side. That's why I say keep going, which is Gaza was the reason the Democrats lost the White House. And we have to be clear about that and take the credit / blame for it, especially from our white liberal comrades and brothers and sisters who are still blaming it for us and saying, we hope they deport you and all this kind of stuff. So let's understand that we are making a lot of progress with organizations like CAIR and many other organizations in the political process. It's so important. Not everybody, the Democrats don't understand it yet. They're still licking their wounds, and they still think it's because of like transgender bathrooms and that kind of stuff. So basically, their argument is they think they lost because they weren't centrist enough, when the truth is they lost because they weren't progressive enough. So there was a poll done by YouGov and ISPU, I think, that asked people who voted, do you see this? That asked people who voted in 2020 for Biden but didn't vote for Harris in 2024 why they didn't do it. And the number one reason cited was Gaza. And that was not just Arab and Muslim voters. So we did something politically historic this last year. And by the way, and I'm just talking to Democrats because I just don't think we have a place, you know, some people say we have a place with Republicans. That's not true. If there's a place for us in this two-party system, it's in some probably faction of the Democratic Party. But we have to understand that if we have to do this again, we will. There is a lot of power in saying no. Much more power in saying no than there is in getting a photo opportunity with a congressman or something like that. So,
Facts.
And it worked. It worked. I mean, the media, I live in Dearborn, man, the media has descended upon us, asking us these stupid questions. It's just so crazy. Questions that they didn't ask for 15 months during the genocide. I mean, I had a journalist ask me a couple weeks ago, said, are you worried about what Trump said about the whole, getting people out of Gaza? I said, are you worried about what Trump said? I said, what do you mean? They said, are you worried that it might embolden people? I said, what do you mean? I said, you mean like embolden people to do things against Palestinians? She said, yeah. I said, on October 10th, 2023, Joe Biden said he saw beheaded babies when he didn't. And 4 days later, a 6-year-old boy was stabbed 26 times in Chicago by his landlord who said Palestinians don't deserve to live. And then 3 Palestinian men were shot in Vermont over Thanksgiving last year for wearing a keffiyeh. And then a 7-year-old Yemeni girl was stabbed in Detroit by an older white man a few months before the election. And now you're asking me if what the president says might embolden people to do something against us? You had 16 months. You asking me this now is exactly the reason why we didn't vote for the Democrats back in November. And so we have to be clear about that and be principled about that. And if we have to tell them no again, we will, until they understand and listen to us, because we beat a president once, and we will do it again if necessary, and there's no shame in that. And we got the orange guy, and we'll deal with him, and we've been dealing with our immigrant parents for 40 years, so it's like, fine, we can deal with him. No one needs to lecture us. This is to like the white liberals who are lecturing us. They're probably not here, but maybe some of them are.
Oh, no, they're here.
They're here, yeah. We, as Arab Americans and Muslim Americans, you do not need to lecture us on who Trump is. We understand, okay? We were the first targets of his policies and his rhetoric in 2015. We continue to be. We understand who he is. So maybe you should ask yourselves why us knowing the direct victims of Trump, knowing that we're gonna get him if we don't vote for you, why we still didn't vote for you. Maybe you should be asking yourselves those questions. Because in Michigan, in the political process, what happened in Dearborn, Michigan last year is that Dearborn, Michigan, I talk about it because it's like, it's an Arab poll all the time, because 90% of the voters in the neighborhood of Dearborn are Arab. So there were thousands of people that went to the polls and voted for Rashida and Trump on the same ballot. And the Democrats are still asking themselves how that happened. Well, a genocide is how that happened. And so if we got to do it again, we will. So yes, of course we need to be more involved in politics, but let's be clear. We have been, we did something historic, and let's keep going.
Thank you.
Ooh.
That was a
This
little
is
TED
tough.
talk.
We're running low on time. There's so much that I
Last
would
one.
like to say about
Last
that. I'm
question.
going to say something really
Oh, yeah.
quickly because I was asked to also
Oh, yeah,
be part of
please.
this Fireside
Yeah.
Chat, not just facilitate. I think to the sister's earlier point about within
Wait,
our
I'll
community.
ask people on the side to please keep
Yeah.
your conversations to a zero.
But to the earlier point that the sister made about issues within the Muslim community, right? The black Muslim community and the rest of the community, I do feel like that's something that we're going to have to address as a community because there are a lot of black Muslims who voted for Kamala Harris. I'm not one of them, but there were a lot. And the ISPU study that you brought up showed that there was a divide when it came to the ballot box within the Muslim community. And to the gentleman's question about our community's involvement in the political process, I would, again, encourage you to give generously to CAIR-Philadelphia because CAIR is doing the work of political engagement, the work of political literacy within our community. And it is important for us to get involved. And clearly, I think it's worth doing because I'm an elected official, but we need more members of our community to be active in these spaces and to understand what it means when you say no to a person in a two-way race, and what do you do after that, right? And the work of after that is what CAIR-Philadelphia is working on, and we need to support that work. Our final question of the night.
Hi, I'm Joanna Lee. I'm a community organizer in Philadelphia, and I've been organizing for like the Palestinian cause for the past year and a half. And I'm just kind of curious. I just want to pose a question to the three speakers here about where do you believe the movement should focus its energy on? Because there's still like people who come out in the streets for Palestine, but I think we've been marching ourselves into circles for a little bit, and I believe many other people don't believe that the Democratic Party can be reformed in any particular way. Like, where do you guys see the movement going, I guess?
Good question. Who wants to take it first?
So I heard two pieces to that. Like I heard first, like where should it go and where is it going? Again, the should I'm not answering. Again, it's not for me to decide where Palestinian movement should go. But I hope, you know, what I hope is that one, like Amanda said, like I hope there's the continuity and the consistency from the newly engaged people. One of the things I've learned in the last couple of decades of being an activist is that sometimes when the young people come on, it's every generation, mine too, I was no different, the energy is high early. You know, I think about all the times we fought to end the death penalty, or the times we fought to get someone off of death row, where the evidence was clear. I mean, we've been fighting for Mumia Abu Jamal, my dear brother, for 4 decades. Free Mumia.
Free Mumia.
And that's important, yeah. And sometimes, like even like last year, somebody's like, oh my God, we got the proof, we got the evidence, we got the legal precedent, we got the this, we got the this, we got the this. The courts will free them, they don't. The governor will read this information, they don't want to execute this person, they do. And then the person dies and hopes are dashed. You know, people give up. They're like, this system doesn't work, this system will never work. I'm not sure our resistance matters because this person didn't survive. And I've watched people give up. And I've watched people not give up, but I've seen a lot of people give up. And so I think where I hope the movement goes is that that they can savor the small victories and that we can figure out how to withstand the losses. That when we get the setbacks, you know, if this ceasefire doesn't hold, God forbid, you know, what will we do? If Donald Trump's not getting Palestinians out of Gaza, I'm not worried about that per se, but if UNRWA gets cut again, the lifeblood, the economic lifeblood of Palestinians in the West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem, et cetera, if Trump strips that away again, what do we do? How do we respond to that, right? If there's another Muslim ban, refugee ban, what do we do about that? I want the energy to stay. I want us to stay organized, and I hope the movement recognizes that even though there have been some victories lately, that this is still a long-term, protracted fight and struggle that will not end soon. But I promise you, if we stay committed, it will end in victory.
Yeah, I think it's okay. So I was I was leading a lot of protests and marching a lot in Detroit and around the country to speak at different protests. I think it's okay that we're not protesting as much as we were before, because of what we were able to achieve in November. That's very important, right? I mean, that was the biggest protest of all, what we did in November. And so we just have to keep going. Look, what happened after October 7th is that because quiet.
Yeah.
People stop talking. It's so weird. Because of what happened on October 7th, Americans started asking themselves questions, okay? And because they said, man, this is crazy. What's going on? And we as Palestinians have always said to people, please do your research. Remember, the other side is the side that doesn't want people to read up, right? So, and when they found out that they did their research, they found out we were telling the truth. But when they found out we were telling the truth, more importantly, they found out that their government and their society had been lying to them. And when you find out that you've been lied to for a long time, your first emotion is anger. And anger is what brought them in the streets. I mean, people who are not Arab or Muslim. Anger is what brought them in the streets with us. And that cannot be reversed, right? I mean, like the toothpaste is out of the tube. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So that we have to keep capitalizing on and keep talking about and keep doing. And by the way, it's not about magnitude, right? It's about how many people are doing in their circle of 20 people or 30 people or 50 people, because it's making a difference. Understand, once again, that it's working, it's making a difference, and most importantly, perhaps, the people in Palestine see it and take their strength from it. So let's just keep going.
Yeah. Great questions, great answers from our keynote or our panelists up here. And I would just add, as an elected official, I always love to see folks that are active in the streets continuing that advocacy, right? And I would add the word consistency to it, right? So if you're not necessarily advocating on that specific issue, you should still be advocating for something. And that work over time helps us to create those holes in the line, right? And CAIR-Philadelphia is an organization that is committed to that work. And so I'd ask all of you that are here with us this evening to be committed to supporting CAIR-Philadelphia in that work. And I would like to thank both of you for joining in this fireless fireside chat.
Thank you.
I want to thank Medina,
Yes.
who has been standing up for all of us and for Palestine and for civil rights for everybody. She doesn't get the credit that she deserves.
Absolutely.
Medina is our queen.
Facts.